Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and today we're going to talk about a sensible training strategy, something that will work at helping to create the type of skill level that we want to achieve in the shortest time period possible. And that's a lot harder than you might think, particularly in today's ammo restrictive environment. So I get a lot of questions. What can I do to help improve my skills over time when I really don't have as much ammo to shoot currently? So a sensible approach to this is really going to start by being consistent. If you can be consistent in not just your live fire, but in also your dry fire, then what you're going to find is that you're still kind of smoothing out your technique so that when you do get to the opportunity to fire live fire training, you've already got plenty of repetitions in the bank. So when we talk about dry fire, a lot of times there's like a blanket statement about dry fire being valuable. And what I tell people is that dry fire is extremely valuable as long as you make it valuable. And so with that being said, my recommendation is to try to commit to doing dry fire at a predetermined number of hours. So if you were to think about a year, 365 days, let's take out 2 months because of holidays, travel, training, family, other obligations. So that gives us basically 10 months. And out of that 10-month period, what I want to try to achieve is I want to have like an actual number of hours total that I'm going to commit to dry fire practice. So let's talk about what that might look like. So I can look at, say, 40 hours, 60 hours, or 80 hours. Now, if you're doing 80 hours worth of dry fire practice, probably watching this video is not really going to provide you with a lot of information because you're already doing things that you need to be doing to get or to accomplish the goals that you've set forth. At about that 60-hour limit, yeah, you're doing a lot. You're doing a lot, but still probably not as much as you could. The 40-hour is kind of like the bare bones minimum. And what does that really look like? Well, that means that you're dedicating about 15 minutes every day at trying to improve your skill set through dry fire. Now, what I recommend is try not to do too much. And the reason being is that, like any goal that we try to establish, if we set too ambitious of a goal and we become frustrated because we're not able to actually get to the end, you start losing interest and then everything falls apart. So keeping it at a more bite-sized, manageable chunk is where you want to go. And 15 minutes a day is a pretty good time. If you were to do that consistently over that 10-month period, you're probably going to get very close to that 40-hour week. Now, there are going to be plenty of times where you're going to do more than 15 minutes. For instance, you go to the range and you're now incorporating dry fire with your live fire. So you're doing some live fire drills that have integrated into them some dry fire. You do dry fire as a warm-up, then you do the integrated drills, and maybe you do dry fire kind of like as a cool down period. So there's clearly plenty of opportunities for you to rack up more time, but if you can commit to that 15 minutes, that's huge. The second thing is allocation for live fire ammunition. What is reasonable? So I tell people right now that a good number for you to look at as far as a yearly quota is going to be 1,000 rounds. So if you can purchase a case of ammunition and that case be distributed over the 10-month period that we're talking about, what you're looking at is you're looking about 50 to 100 rounds per range session. If you go to the range once a month, 100, twice a month, 50 rounds each time. And what that's going to do is when you combine that with the integrated, or when you integrate that with the dry fire, now you're going to start to see more bang for your buck, literally. And then the consistent dry fire that you've been practicing is going to hopefully make those 50 to 100 rounds that much more valuable because now you're actually testing. You're not developing per se, you're testing. So during the pandemic, I experimented with a lot of different things, and these were the two things that I actually found to be the most helpful. when I committed to, I'm going to fire this many rounds in this time period, what that did for me was that forced me to take every round and assign it some sort of value, whether it be accuracy value, speed value. And then after that, all 50 rounds had value, or 100 rounds had value. So my dry fire practice was designed to help improve the value of the live fire rounds when I got to shoot them. When I came to the range, I already had a predetermined course of fire that I was going to shoot, whether it was 50 or 100 rounds. Now, what I discovered is when I took 6 months to kind of experiment with this. Started off by doing some baseline so I kind of see where I was at. And then for the first 3 months, no live fire, dry fire only. And then I started working the last 3 months of once a trip or once a month, I would go to the range for a 50-round course of fire. And what I was trying to do was validate how effective the non-live firing months were compared to my baselines. And what I found was I actually saw some improvements. It wasn't a lot, but it was value added to the dry fire because I wasn't losing skill from the baselines that I had started with. I wasn't seeing a depreciation there. So I did the 3 months with live fire added to my dry fire program. And it was a really interesting kind of experiment for myself. And it forced me to take a step back and, number one, validate what I'd been doing. Yes, it's working. It has value added to my time, talent, and treasure. 2, how much more can I milk out of this kind of scenario? So what I did then was I went from a 6-month experiment to now I'm into the second part of this experiment, which is an additional 6 months. So I'm going to do 3 more months of live fire integration. So that'll give me a total of 6. And then I'm going to finish off this experiment with 3 months of no live fire and then a final test at the end. I'm on month 4. I'm on month 2. I've got 4 more months to finish this 12-month experiment. And to be honest, I'm very impressed with just the work that I've been able to, or the improvements that I've been able to achieve. So what does that mean? That means that you can also see a similar type of improvement in your own skill development if you take these 2 principles and apply them to your practice schedules. So sensible practice is achievable even in this kind of time period where ammo is sparse. All right, I'm Jeff Gonzalez. Would love to hear any questions or comments. Please feel free to post them down below. Until then, take care and stay safe.